Hi and welcome to Leitrim Daily. My name is Bryan Fennell and you are listening to the first in a returning series to the channel. It's in focus here today, and it's been a few months because of the COVID shutdown. We haven't had this particular show, but it is our fourth show of the week, back in the weekly schedule from this week. We have a very special guest today, someone who's a bit new to the county, but not that new to myself. We've crossed paths before. I'd like to welcome the county's newest Rural Recreation Officer, Bryan Fennell, to the show. Bryan, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Now, we have crossed paths. You, in a former life, spent a bit of time working with the No Name Club, which of course is a teenagers' youth club.
It's a youth organisation that promotes active, alternative lifestyles for young people aged 15 to 18. But that was a lifetime ago now at this stage.
Don't make me feel that old. Thanks very much.
Yeah, we're both getting up there.
Let's talk more about why you're now in County Leitrim and the actual role, the Rural Recreation Officer. You're part of the Leitrim Development Company there in Drumshanbo. Tell us about the role, first of all, and how, I suppose, you find yourself in it.
Well, it's a very interesting role. There's very few of these roles in the nation, so I'm very fortunate and very grateful to have the role. The role is designed around, it's there to implement the walk scheme, the national walk scheme. My job is to administer it, get communities on board and get landowners on board to the scheme. The scheme rewards landowners through a payment scheme where they take on work every year to maintain the trail that crosses their own property. So it puts a little bit of responsibility back onto the landowner to make sure that trail is up to the standard that would be expected of any national trail.
Now, when we talk about a national trail, just for people who might not be familiar with that language, we're talking about people will see signs for the Leitrim Way or the Miners' Way around this particular region. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's about 44 national trails in Ireland. They were established in the 80s, promoted greatly in the 90s, and then they kind of went by the way for a while. There wasn't a lot of money pumped into them because Celtic Tiger came along and everyone got a little bit distracted and started going off abroad. Then in the sort of mid 2000s to now, there's been a surge of trail development, and now everyone wants a national trail in their backyard. They want access to it. We've gone from 44 national trails to over 900 accredited trails all over the country, from small little loops to connected trails like the Bear Brittany Way that stretches from Bear Peninsula all the way up into Cavan.
Tell me more about that. I've never heard about it.
The Bear Brittany Way? You've
That's
heard
not
about
true.
it. That's not true. You've walked it.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of the Bear Brittany Way. It goes by my front door. And yes, as you said, I did have the pleasure of walking across some fabulous territory from Cork to Leitrim, and I suppose the trail actually does continue the whole way up through the county of Leitrim along the Leitrim Way. Let's talk specifically about the Leitrim Way for a moment, because that's kind of something that people will be aware of very, very loosely. It's been there, you've seen the signs, but you've probably never walked along it for the most part of the people who are listening to this show. Where does it start and where does it end?
Well, the Leitrim Way now starts in Leitrim Village, at the harbour.
That's where all the best things start.
It's it. It's the heart of the county. And I think that romantically it starts at Leitrim Village. You know, the Leitrim Way should start there because it's named, the name sharing. And now you go from Leitrim Village up the canal to Drumshanbo via Waterways Ireland's trail network, and then you join onto the traditional Leitrim Way from there up to Dowra through on the east side of Loch Allen. So it's a beautiful view. It's got a lot of energy put into it locally from the community in the last few years. People are really there. All the locals are really. I don't know how they've come about, who's drawn up this energy, but it's from speaking to them on the ground, everyone wants this to happen. They want more and more people to walk, to see what they have on their door, to have access to it, and it's just a beautiful walk. It's spectacular. I've got the lucky job of helping that process of developing it and making it up to the national standards that's expected of it, because now I'm going to work to get the landowners along that stretch onto the walk scheme.
Yeah, so let's talk about the walk scheme specifically and what that is and why it exists.
Well, it started in 2008. It started with only a few trails nationwide, and now there's about 44 trails on it. Between 44 and 50. We're extending it this year from the Department of Rural and Community Development, and that's how my role came to exist. The Leitrim Way was accredited this year onto the walk scheme. It was awarded it by lots of pressure being put on them from the local development company. So the department awarded that, which is great. I'm very grateful for that, because with that access to the walk scheme came a new rural recreation officer, i.e. my job. So I'm very happy to be here to be filling that role. What the task now is to identify all the landowners along that stretch. Anything that touches the Leitrim Way or crosses the Leitrim Way, they all qualify for access to the scheme. The landowners, I'll approach the landowners and work with them to establish how much work is on their piece of land, be it either litter picking, hedge cutting, grass cutting, maintaining stiles, ensuring that gates are up to standard, or anything else that we find that's unique to their land, be it a small bridge or a bit of gravel work, water maintenance, whatever it is. We'll identify that, we'll agree set hours work per year, and then we'll make a payment to those landowners over the next 5 years, every year.
So it's really an opportunity to get a lot of subsidised work effectively. So rather than having a trail with a managed staff the whole way along and travelling up and down, the actual landowners themselves do that kind of odds and ends work. A couple of hours here, a couple of hours there, maybe cut the grass, keep the hedgerows back, and the stiles, which are vitally important for most people when you're walking these. But also, from their point of view, it's extra income to maintain their own property, which is absolutely kind of win-win.
And for a lot of landowners, they're doing a lot of this work anyway, as part of their everyday farming. So it's a complementary to that. And what we found in other parts of the country, when there's been walk schemes, it kind of develops micro businesses as well. You find some landowners actually really get into it and they start developing micro enterprises around it, be it car parking or toilet facilities, whatever it is, and camping. I've met one lad in Wicklow who I know for years has been selling walking sticks at the back of his house as the trail passes through his walk scheme property. He sells them for €5, and he's very clever. He does it because he knows people are 2 days into their walk at that stage and they're tired and they're knackered, and he just sells sticks out the back door. He makes a small fortune out of it.
Yeah, there's one thing I saw when I was on a bike trail in France that I haven't seen implemented here yet, and that was a solar powered vending machine that sold like bike parts, that sold tubes and puncture repair kits and little pumps and food. So it might be water, it could be just little snacks, just to kind of get the blood sugars back up.
I've seen similar in Scotland, where a farmer has like a 24-hour access vending machine to milk products, so like cheese and milk and stuff like that, but it's on a trail as well. So you actually, not only are local people coming and using this, but trail walkers who are on long distance walks are coming across going, oh my god. And to them, after spending a week walking in the wilderness, and they come across a vending machine that's open at 2 o'clock in the morning, they'll give them something, a unique taste that they haven't had in a long time. That to them, they pay 3 times the amount just
absolutely
to have it.
Money's not even the issue when you come to that, and you look at maybe an old outhouse that could be converted into some sort of a hostel or that sort of thing. That there's plenty of opportunities, and I would have seen the beginnings of that 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, on the Bear Brittany Way, is where there's a huge just emptiness of accommodation, that you've got these old outhouses, and it's like that would be perfect for a place to stay.
And they don't have to be top end.
Oh,
they just need to be a roof.
Yeah, a roof, reasonably warm, and a mattress would be perfectly fine on that. How do people find out about these trails though?
There's lots of opportunities to find out about the trails. They're promoted by local tourism groups, but the way I point people to find out information is through Sport Ireland Outdoors website. So Sport Ireland is the national accreditation of trails, and they have it used to be called the National Trails Office, but it became part of Sport Ireland, which is now Sport Ireland Outdoors. If you Google Sport Ireland Outdoors or Google Sport Ireland Trails or any of those sort of ways, it'll bring you to their new website, which highlights every trail in the country. You can find walking trails, Blueway trails, so for kayakers or canoers, it will show the trails there, cycling loops or cycling trails as well, and even some horseback riding trails as well. Some of the communities around Ireland have created official horse riding trails, which is lovely.
So that's all well and good in terms of the actual official trails, but if I just want to go off the beaten track and just wander, there are options that maybe aren't accredited, but where do I stand from a legal point of view? Can I just go wherever I want?
From a legal point of view, this country doesn't have a right to roam, so you can't actually go wherever you want to go in this country. Having said that, there are mountain areas that are very popular for people to roam, and traditional areas. So like obviously the reeks in Kerry, which are very used to people walking for a long time. But if you want to walk in said areas, what we're trying to promote is the green access route. So, for example, Aru, a mountain access route near Kinloch, that's been agreed by the landowners. That we've developed a trail. Leitrim Development Company has developed a trail through a series of landowners' property, all marked, all waymarked, and insured by Sport Ireland Outdoors. But that gives you access to the uplands, where it's acceptable there for people to walk in an upland area. That way, you're not having that awkward situation where unknowingly you might be passing through a farmer's land. He mightn't be very happy with people coming through his land. So we encourage people to use these mountain access paths that are everywhere. Now, they are shown on a lot of the OSI maps now, which is great. And they're also highlighted in various, like Leitrim Tourism have all the mountain access paths that we have in Leitrim are on the Leitrim Tourism website.
In terms of insurance, because you mentioned insurance there, what happens if I have a fall on one of these trails, and particularly what happens if I have a fall on one of the non-marked trails?
Well, in Ireland, it's a bit of a grey area. It's not a straightforward answer, unfortunately. The landowners are insured, and the management committee are the responsible committee for that thing. So they're the ones who have to almost defend themselves.
So the management committee is the Leitrim Development Company in this instance? In
that instance, depends on each trail. Each trail has a different management committee. So for the Leitrim Way, for example, it's managed by a collaboration between the County Council, Waterways Ireland, Leitrim Development Company, and the local community groups. So they're the responsible body. It's insured by Sport Ireland Outdoors because it's accredited by them. But we've had a very good history in this country of people trying to sue on walking trails and actually being thrown out in court or losing in court.
Yeah, there's one notable instance in Wicklow a couple of years back where a woman had her case for 50 or 60 grand.
For legal reasons, I can't give you her name.
But
that name boils in my blood every day.
If you Google it, you find it. And that's not to say that someone who actually has an accident and does need help and has no other recourse for expenses, like
exactly,
and that's why genuine cases,
and that's why with the genuine cases that's why the insurance policy exists. But the for her case that in Wicklow, which was overturned thankfully by the High Court, she was making claim that the land was the trail infrastructure had to be built to the same standard as a playground, and maintained to the same standard as a playground, even though she was 600 meters above sea level, and she admitted in court that she actually tripped because she wasn't looking where she was going. So there's a little bit of responsibility on yourself when you go out into these areas. It is all relative, and I certainly don't believe that I'm an expert in any insurance claims. But having your own responsibility to go out into these areas and being prepared to understand that it's not going to be a smooth surface, especially the higher up you go. The trail mightn't be maintained every week because access to that area is very, very difficult. But certainly you have to take a little bit of your own responsibility in these regards.
And of course, not all trails are invested in or maintained to the level, say, of Quilca in terms of what people's expectations are. You don't get these lovely boardwalks the whole way up a mountain. That's not normal. No,
that's not normal. And I'm glad you said that example. Like that is a beautiful walk, known as Stairway to Heaven, and it's spectacular. And my fear in the long term is because of the materials that they've used to build that, be it wood, they will break down, and there's going to be in a few years' time, there's going to be a massive maintenance problem there. I think it's a beautiful area and I think it's spectacular, but I wouldn't be a massive fan of it. It's led to its own issues.
It's so popular now, it's created an issue where it's actually going to deteriorate because of the use, which is counterproductive.
Absolutely.
In terms of the future plans in the region, what can you tell us about maybe, obviously we've got the Leitrim Way, you mentioned the uplands in North Leitrim, but what else can we look forward to over the next few months? There's also the Blueway, of course, which kind of now sits as part of the Leitrim Way.
Yes, yeah, it does. Leitrim is, in my opinion, and again, I'm only new to the county, but it's definitely batting above its weight for what it's tearing up to get. The connection of networks of trails within the county is going to be spectacular. And what's going to be a centrepiece for that is there's 2 major greenways in development. We have the Sligo to Enniskillen Greenway, which will be going through Drumaire, Manor Hamilton, and towards Glenfarne. Yeah. And then
border Belcoo.
Yes, yeah, and we have 3 sort of examples there within each of those areas of 1 kilometre stretches of what it would look like, and demonstration pieces, and they're working spectacular, especially Manor Hamilton, because what it's done now is it's connected the town to the GAA pitch, where traditionally a lot of people were driving out with their families out to the GAA pitch for a Saturday game or training, whatever it was. Where now they're walking out, they're cycling out, and children are going out there by themselves.
See, I think that for me is the big one, is that you could now let realistically a 12 or 13-year-old in groups, maybe on bicycles, out to the GAA pitch, because apart from once where it crosses a side road, it's off-road the entire length.
There is a stretch that's on sort of a local road, but the locals have embraced it. The surface has been improved for the people that live along that road. There's been good signage put up, and they know that at certain times of day there are the likelihood that children are going up and down this path. So their attitudes have changed, and it's very welcome in the community.
Yeah, and I think also when you look at it with the recent COVID shutdown of all activities for sport, there's an element of the path at the very end of it that comes into the corner of the GAA grounds. It's a very popular place to be doing 20-metre stretches up and down there while people are playing games.
I'm glad you brought up the COVID. I know we're all trying to avoid talking about COVID these days, but for me...
It's only why we didn't do this show for the last 4 months.
For me, COVID did one major thing for this country, and it highlighted to everyone in Ireland what was in their 2 kilometres. We were stuck inside our own 2 kilometres for so long, and it really showed people, especially for rural people, I have nothing. You might live in a rural area, and the perceived view from people who from urban environments is, sure, if you live in the countryside, you can walk through the fields and watch this. A lot of people who live in rural areas, who live on quiet roads, for them it was always get in the car, drive into town, and walk in the park, or walk by the beach, or walk these public areas. When they were stuck inside their 2 kilometres, all they had was their little road in front of their house. They couldn't go through the fields, they didn't own them, there was no agreed access there, and that actually highlighted to so many communities we need to start working to develop a small trail network in our own community and stop relying on the big town or the big tourist attractions that are around the area.
In terms of COVID, obviously has also ballooned the number of users. I know we live, as I mentioned, on the actual Blueway route out of Leitrim Village towards Battlebridge, and the numbers, particularly of cyclists, has just skyrocketed.
Yeah, you can't buy a bike in this country anymore. You go to any bike shop and they just say, come back in 6 months. There's no bikes left. Everyone has bought them, and it's been spectacular from a recreation point of view, from my point of view, showing that we can, our numbers are going through the roof. It's great, and we're getting local people out using it. My hope that we can continue the momentum to get more infrastructure built and get a little bit more etiquette built into it as well. Like that, we have a lot of people using the outdoors in Ireland who've never used it before. There's families that would have travelled abroad every summer, which are now going hill walking, but the etiquette isn't there. We've a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of instances where mountain rescue have been blocked going up mountains because people have parked in front of what they thought was just a quiet gate that no one would be going in and out. But it's actually a mountain access path for the mountain rescue or for a farmer who goes in and out there every day. So we have to do a little bit of education piece around etiquette in the outdoors. What I always say to people is, if the car park looks full, go somewhere else. We've a massive region. Don't be fixed when you leave your house in the morning that you must walk a certain hill that day. Sometimes that hill isn't right for you that day. Go somewhere else. There's always other option.
Yeah, and of course Mountain Rescue has been very, very busy over the last few months, particularly in this region. We've had a couple of rescues all over the country that have made national news. You don't have to be 13 miles off the coast of Galway to need rescue, and you can be just out in your backyard or up in the hills and get yourself into trouble. What are the big no-nos for people who take a day on the trail? Maybe someone who says, I want to walk a bit of the Leitrim Way. I'm going to maybe walk from Ramshambo to Ballinaglara today. What would the vital things they need to prepare for? What do they need to bring with them?
Do look at the weather report. The weather, I know,
so important.
I know we always slag off the weather, going, "Oh, sure, could be anything today," and especially here in the west of Ireland. What I always tell tourists is, whenever they're giving out about the weather, I just say, "Wait 10 minutes. It will change. It mightn't change for long, but it will change." But no, the weather report is crucial. And having a mobile phone, but not relying on it. Buy a paper map. Mobile phones are great, and the maps on them are spectacular, and we all know how to use them these days. But the amount of times I've met people out on the hill and they said, "I've got 4% battery, how do I get down off the hill?" It's like, well, you've got 2 hours walk ahead of you, sort of thing. So have a paper map and know how to use it. Mountaineering Ireland have spectacular videos on their website on how to use the maps, how to use a compass. It's been, COVID has really highlighted to people, we do have so much around us. It's just about getting educated on how to use them. I would always say join a mountaineering club, but I know a lot of the mountaineering clubs at the moment are a bit nervous about new people joining them with COVID. It's been a funny time for all of us.
So get outside, but don't go near people.
Don't go near people. Yeah.
I suppose locally there has been a bit of an upsurge. When we say upsurge, there's been 4 cases in the last week across the county, and that in Leitrim terms, thankfully, over the last few months, is a bit of an upsurge. And people are getting a little bit more cautious, and we've had a couple of sports clubs. I know Kiltubbard suspended activity for 48 hours last week. Carricktown here in Carrick-on-Shannon did similar. They're back open again. I haven't heard any update on Kiltubbard at the time we're recording this. I know Leitrim Gales issued a statement this morning that they had a close contact with a case, but not close enough to justify a suspension. So we're very aware that it's now in our community, particularly in this Carrick-on-Shannon area. And even though we had 80 something cases up to now, we probably hadn't really talked about it or thought about it that much. It just was part of the national picture. In terms of, I suppose, who you work for, because you mentioned earlier that you work for the LDC, Leitrim Development Company. You're not with the council, and I say that in inverted commas because everyone just says, "Oh, it's the council." You're not part of the council. You're not part of the local sports partnership, which is also Sport Ireland linked, but you're part of Leitrim Development Company. Why is that, and what is Leitrim Development Company for those that might not be familiar with it?
Well, the Leitrim Development Company is a local development company. There's about 50 of them in the country, and the idea behind them is to be placed at local level for giving support for enterprises or support for communities in accessing government funding or government supports. Why the rural recreation officers were placed in the local development companies is because of a number of aspects. One is local development companies are better suited for actually dealing with communities at a small level. They have the really good relationships with them. We know, we have solid contacts in every community across Leitrim, every small town or village. We know someone in there who can really help us get in and out of and who to contact when we're working on different programs. Another thing is we run the LEADER program. So it's a European part-funded program and a government-funded program where we can give access to funding for people for running a whole host of different projects, be it a community level or a personal level or a business level or a team level. So every town hall in the village, in the whole county, has had LEADER funding in some regard, and that's why the rural recreation officer was placed in there, is to help in that regard and help, signpost communities into different funding streams and help them through that process.
Excellent. So of course they're based there just on I think it's called Church Street in Ramshambo, just opposite Scollins restaurant.
Yes.
So for people who are familiar, but you can check them out. They're online. Just Google Leitrim Development Company, unless you have their website handy.
ldco.ie.
Absolutely. I knew it was something weird. I wasn't quite going to commit to it. Bryan Fennell, welcome to Leitrim, first of all. Thank you so much for coming in today and giving us a good understanding of what exactly your role is, and more importantly, the resources and the facilities that are there for people in our uplands, along our canals, along our rivers, and just on the highways and byways of Leitrim. It's great to kind of realise maybe exactly what's there for us to enjoy on a daily basis if we so choose. And of course now we've got loads of time because COVID has us all a little bit quieter than we would maybe like to be.
Keeps me a little bit busy. I imagine I'm going to have a lot of communities knocking down my door, asking me how how are they going to develop trails, how they're going to develop recreation infrastructure for the area. And my job is like that, to support them and guide them through the process. I won't do all the work for them. I always give homework, but I am there at the end of the phone or end of an email for that advice, that crucial advice, that local advice that they need.
You might as well give us that phone number and that email address as well when you're here.
So my email address is rro@ldco.ie, and my mobile number is 086 066 0771.
Perfect. Bryan Fennell, thank you so much for dropping into us.
Thanks so much.